From the time that our quarantining began, we have been staring at a beautiful spiritual lesson without even realizing it. How many times have we asked ourselves, or those we have been talking to over these past few months, how's my connection? We have been very concerned about staying connected to our internet. Because for many of us, if that connection goes, so does our link to others. My battles to stay connected on the internet over these past months have taught me something that I especially want to hold on to today. I've learned that when my connection drops, I never stop trying to fix it. I restart the computer, unplug and replug the modem, or switch to other technologies. It is a reminder that when I feel disconnected, there are always options, always ways to feel that connection again. If I wanted to describe Yizkor in the terms we use most in this moment of our lives, I would say that Yizkor is a reboot. It is a time to ensure that our connection is strong. Yizkor reminds us to take a lesson from our computers and always search for the signals. The more we stay connected to nature, to community, and to our traditions, the more we stay connected to those who we are remembering today. Among the many people we lost in 5780, Rabbi Adin Even Yisrael Steinsaltz passed away earlier this year at the age of 83. Born in 1937 to secular Zionist parents who made their way to the land of Israel, Steinsaltz grew up in British Mandatory Palestine and was 11 when the independent state of Israel was born. A phenomenal student, he studied physics and mathematics at the Hebrew University. He went on to serve as a resident scholar at Yale University, the Institute for Advanced Studies at Princeton, and the Woodrow Wilson Institute in Washington. At age 24, he became the youngest person in Israel's history at that time to become a school principal. While amassing so many academic accomplishments, another element of young Adin Steinsaltz's life began taking shape: Jewish study. According to an article in Time magazine from 2001, Adin's father, Avraham, a far-left socialist, was an early Zionist and proudly Jewish, but he kept any religious sentiments carefully concealed. Little Adin read Lenin and Freud before his bar mitzvah. Later, however, the family saw to it that he was tutored in the Talmud and attended a religious high school. His father Avraham explained, "I don't care if you are a heretic. I don't want you to be an ignoramus." The same brilliant mind and soul of Adin Steinsaltz that allowed him to accomplish so much in the sciences also allowed him to drink in the sea of Talmud. Israeli historian Zev Katz, who incidentally was a leader in Israel's Association of Secular Humanists, in other words, not a big fan of religion, said of the religious Steinsaltz, "He will stand like Rashi and Maimonides." Steinsaltz published over 60 books in his lifetime. He wrote mystery novels, zoology books, and theological works. His hobby, as he called it when he began at age 27, was translating and commenting on the Babylonian Talmud. The 63 tractate work consists of 2,711 double-sided folios known in Hebrew as dapim. One side of each daf is a page, or an amud, in Hebrew. On each amud is the text itself in mostly Aramaic and Rabbinic Hebrew as well. There are also commentaries on both margins of the page. Adin's hobby at age 27 turned into a project. The project turned into a practice. And 45 years later, In 2010, Adin Evan Yisrael Steinsaltz completed his 44-volume Hebrew translation and commentary of the Babylonian Talmud. The revolutionary work made the esoteric text into one that is readable and somewhat understandable for those of us who did not grow up with a yeshiva education. There are now editions in English, French, Spanish, and Russian. You can find copies of his work on my bookshelf and on Aaron Nielsen Schultz's bookshelf here at Beth. Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz will be remembered for generations to come. He was a gadol, an intellectual giant of our generation. In fact, Time magazine called him a once-in-a-millennium scholar. But today, on this holiest day of Yom Kippur, and especially at this hour of remembrance, I want to argue that Adin Steinsaltz will not be remembered primarily for his intellectual prowess. Rather, it is how he used his astounding gifts that will make his memory live on for generations. More than he was a scholar, Adin Steinsaltz was a connector. He was a unifier of things once set apart. He made whole what was once broken. The title of the 2001 Time magazine article I've quoted here captures this idea so very well. The article is titled, "Giving the Talmud to the Jews." The Talmud has always been ours. And yet, over the last few centuries, for so many Jewish communities, the Talmud somehow retracted into the darkest corners of the Jewish library. Out of sight and out of daily life, Jewish people went about their lives unknowingly performing rituals and quoting sages, all preserved in the Talmud. Yet many had no real sense that they were standing on the shoulders of these great giants. Here are some examples. There is no explicit commandment to light Shabbat candles or Hanukkah candles. Those commandments are enforced in the Talmud. The famous line from Rabbi Hillel, "If I'm not for myself, who will be? If I'm not for others, who am I? And if not now, when?" is also found in the Talmud. The Talmud and those who wrote it continue to have a profound impact on Jews and Judaism, whether they know it or not. Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz made hundreds of thousands of people more aware of this fact. He connected the Jews to their spiritual ancestors and their thoughts. The Talmud is not the only piece of our history that has stood the test of time. The ancient sages are not the only ones who impact our daily lives. Our loved ones, who we hold in our hearts today, who have departed from this world, they give us power and strength also. Like the prophets of old, our loved ones who came before us helped us imagine what our futures could be. Like the sages of old, our departed loved ones were the people willing to sit and listen as we shared our problems. Some of us are remembering people today who, like the sages of the Talmud, we may have never had the chance to meet. Or perhaps the people we are holding in our minds had passed before we had time to form full memories of them. Whatever your relationship looked like with the ones who you are remembering today, by virtue of remembering them, those people had and continue to have a profound impact on who we all are and who we are turning out to be. What is so special about remembering and honoring those who passed is not that it's something that we have to do or create. It's something we have to connect. It is the connection of past to present and present to future. It is making the effort to take a deep breath in and appreciate this very moment. Staying present and staying connected is the way that we can make a major impact on this world, not only for us, but on future generations. Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz wrote mounds of academic works, but his great contribution is giving the gift of Talmud to the Jews. Similarly, we spend so much time working to build our careers and our lives, and all of that is very important. I imagine that our loved ones we remember today would look on with great pride at the ways all of us contribute to our society. But like Steinsaltz, the greatest achievement we can aspire towards is to give ourselves the gift of connection. And in doing so, we can bring honor to those we remember and give the gifts of memory to the next generations. It is not an easy thing to do, to be a good connector. It can cause us much sorrow and pain when we remember those who have passed on. But it is our obligation to do it. It is a mitzvah to remember. It is a mitzvah to tell the stories of those who came before us and to honor them in the way we live our lives. At Yizkor, and especially on Yom Kippur, it is important to acknowledge that this obligation can sometimes feel daunting. So I want to remind us that there is no wrong way to connect. It is essential to remember that we are human, that we are fallible, that in our hearts we want to spend every moment making our loved ones proud and spend every second remembering them. And sometimes we fall short of that goal. Some of us may have forgotten to light a Yizkor candle on the correct day. Some days we don't have time for Kaddish, or we've been meaning to visit someone's grave but haven't been able to find the time. It's okay. We are human. And just thinking about that person is an indicator of how much we remember them and miss them. On this Yizkor, as we take on the privilege and obligation of remembering, try not to be so hard on yourself. Remember that what you do is enough. Remember that you are human, and that our humanity, with all of its imperfections, is also a link that connects us to generations past and generations yet to come. It is a human thing to want to do more, to build and create more, and to want to leave our mark on this world. The life of Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz reminds us, however, that simply striving to do more isn't the only key to living a life that will be remembered. Listen to Rabbi Steinsaltz's words, which he once shared in an interview. And thanks to Aaron Nielsen Schultz for sharing this quote with me. Steinsaltz said, "I did something, but I didn't do enough. I didn't even do a fraction of the things I wanted to do. I wrote such and such books, very nice. I gave such and such lectures, very nice. I wrote articles like sand on the seashore. It's not enough." This was from a man who translated and commented on the entire Talmud, published over 60 books and numerous articles. If he didn't do enough, what does that say for the rest of us? The lesson I learned from this is that if we measure life by articles written or widgets sold or materials produced, none of us can ever do enough. Not even the great Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz. But what if we measure and remember not by the metric of production, but rather by the metric of connection? If we do that, each of us can experience lives of profound meaning. If we measure ourselves by how strongly we connect the links in the chain of wisdom and kindness that came before us and will surely continue long after us, then our loved ones will be remembered forever. Zichronam livracha. May the memories of all those we are remembering today be a blessing to us always. Gmar Chatima Tova.